Hello everybody, it's Karen. Thanks for joining me. I've got a different technique for you today. I have been making my own stencil paste with this Liquitex acrylic medium. It is a gloss heavy gel, that's what it's called, and you can see it's quite thick in the jar. When you put it on white cardstock, it just goes transparent. It's a lot like a clear embossing powder, but you can really see the shine of that. It's definitely glossy. And here I have just ink blended over top of that white cardstock just to show you. I wiped off the excess, but it's kind of a neat medium. So I have a few different ways I'm going to use that today just to show you. And the first one I'm going to use is this. It's Cosmic Shimmer Pixie Sparkle Powder. Any of those color burst powders would work. And I tend not to over mix it when I'm using the sparkle powders just because I like the way when you apply it through the stencil, it breaks out into different colors. As you can see here, the greens and the purples start to come out, and I quite like that. But of course, if you don't, then just blend it in nice and smoothly and you won't have that variation in color. So this was done on a piece of clear acetate. So I'll show you that, and I will show you all of these as they dry later on. And I have made cards, so towards the end of the video I'll show you what cards I made with them. And so here it is on the acetate. It's a bit of a softer color, I think I would say. And again, I'm doing it here now on a white card, so you'll see the difference in just a minute between the acetate and the white card. I think it's a bit darker on the card, not sure. Now for the scraps that I had left over, I just put these on white card instead of wasting them. And you'll see also how that dries in a little bit. Now this is a different way of applying it. I have got the stencil over acetate, and instead of mixing it with, this is now Nouveau shimmer powder I was using here. Instead of mixing it though, before I applied it, I just put the gel down first, or the paste first, and then you sprinkle your powders over top of that, and you want to get a fairly even coverage over the stencil. So I'm really applying that fairly liberally there. And once you've got it down, then you want to give about, I think it's about 3 or 4 mists of water. You don't want it soaking wet so that it seeps under the stencil, but you definitely want to get those powders starting to move and blend a bit. And now, I know you don't see it in the video, but I waited about a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes before I took the stencil off. You just don't want it all to dry down. And this paste dries fairly quickly, actually. So there it is now. It's still wet, of course. Now I'm doing the same stencil over green cardstock. I hadn't done this before, and you'll see later in the video I fixed this a little bit. But I'm doing the same technique here, paste over the stencil. I applied my powders over top of that, and I just missed it a couple of times, 2, 3, 4 times. Just so you see the powder moving. I had a spot here where I hadn't got enough powder, so I just added that in. And I thought this was really quite pretty when I pulled it off. But you're going to see in a minute, as it dries, it doesn't look the same. So that's how I fixed it. You have to wait and see. Okay, so I tried the Distress Re-Inkers as well. Now here, I don't know what I was thinking, but I put 2 drops in, and you're going to see that was Evergreen Bough, and look at how dark that goes. It's just amazing. It's almost like that's pine needles instead of Evergreen Bough. So when I did the second little puddle of gloss, I just put 1 drop in, and this is going to be peacock feathers that I put in here. And I think that if I was going to use these re-inkers again, I would put the re-inker down first, and then pull a bit of that into a pile of the gel paste, just so I could control the color a bit better, because I wasn't too thrilled with how dark these were, but I tried it anyway. So on they went, and now I've got this glitter that I'm going to apply right over top of that gel as it's wet. So I've removed the stencil, and I'm just sprinkling that glitter on over top. and setting that aside to dry. I did tap off the excess here. I'm struggling to get it up off my desk. And these are some very inexpensive metallic acrylic paints that I found in a discount home store here in Canada, HomeSense. And I am just mixing in a little of this with the paste. It's really quite pretty. That paste really acts like an extender, I would say, because you could put the paint on directly, but the gel medium really extends how well it spreads. So you can see here, it's got that same nice shine from the from the paint itself, but also from the medium. Okay, now here are all of the samples dried. These were the first ones that I did with the Cosmic Shimmer powders. You can see the shine on them. It's really quite pretty, and there's a bit of a texture there. It's raised a bit. So I thought that was quite pretty. This is the one done on acetate, and you can see it's more translucent. It's a softer color, I think. This was my scrap, and you can see how glossy that really is. Here is the one done with the Nouveau Shimmer powders, and when you flip it over, you get a much more intense color when you're doing this on acetate. And now here is this green one. When it dried, it sort of went almost clear. There's a bit of color. So to fix it, I thought after I did the video, I went back and did this. I first applied the white pigment ink through the stencil, and then I put the gloss gel down, and then the powder, and spritz with water. And so that's the difference now that white pigment ink gives. So I may go back and redo that card, I think. Now this one was done with the re-inkers and the glitter. And I think you can see the glitter there. It is on there. It doesn't come off, so it did adhere to that paste. It's kind of fun. Okay, now off camera I had done a few extras with this gold paste, or the gold paint. That was on the acetate. This is the one I was doing on the white card. And then I just changed up stencils to use up what was left over and got this one out of that. And then because that was so much fun, I used this teal color and just that holly stencil and made another background. And then I did have a bit left over to add to another piece of scrap cardstock. So here are the cards. The one on the left, that snowflake, is actually from my scrap piece of cardstock. And it's of course a shaker with the window, the acetate window. You saw the card on the left. The one on the right, I stenciled and clear embossed the background and then just cut a window of that acetate that I had done. Here, this little guy is from Gerda Steiner Designs, and he's on that re-inker background. The one on the left, I ink blended over the white cardstock to make the village the background, and then the right is just an acetate bendy card. And then a couple more cards for you just to see. I hope that that's given you a little bit of inspiration today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you are having a wonderful day.